everybody, and
Everybody.
welcome back to another episode of Death in Cambodia, Life in America. Today, I have two amazing founders of what is the one and only Mama Teav's hot garlic sauce. You guys, this is a family legacy that was brought to life by two siblings, Christina and Anthony Teav. They grew up in Stockton, watching their mom, Mama Teav herself, cook with heart and soul and bold flavor. Christina, with her culinary background, and Anthony took these memories and turned them into something to share with the rest of the world. Cambodian garlic that can be kind of drizzled on top of any kind of food. They are currently in all the premium stores in the Bay Area, like Buy Right, World Market, and many, many more. My dad and I actually have a jar of this stuff in our office and we use it daily. So I'm super, super honored to have you guys on here. Christina and Anthony, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, welcome to be here.
Thank
Thanks for having
you.
us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So excited to be here and connect.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start off, and I usually start off most of my interviews from the very beginning. Talk to me about how you guys grew up. You guys grew up in Stockton, which is obviously a very Cambodian heavy community. What was it like growing up there, and kind of like your relationship with your Cambodianness as you guys were growing up?
Yeah. So our family came in mid 1979. My mom was pregnant with myself, so I think that helped get them over here a little bit faster than most families. So I think we were really one of the first waves of Cambodians in Stockton, and we grew up in an area where right now there's a lot of Cambodians, but growing up there weren't too many. Like in our elementary school, preschool, there just weren't as many. And it always felt like growing up, we have a big family on our mom's side. She's one of 13 children. Most of them live in Stockton. The other half live in Long Beach. Go figure, right?
Yeah.
And so we always were surrounded by a lot of Cambodians. But I think growing up, and I'm just speaking for myself, like we always felt like we were very Cambodian. We did all Cambodian things. We were always around our families, but we never had like a lot of Cambodian friends. Uh, I think like in middle school, elementary school, I had one Cambodian friend. High school had one Cambodian friend. College, I had one Cambodian friend. So it always felt like we were on our own little island. But it wasn't until like in mid '80s where we started. When I was probably in first, second grade, where we started seeing a lot of Cambodians kind of migrating to Stockton or immigrating to Stockton. So yeah, that was
Yeah, and I would say I don't think like I think our parents and even our aunts and uncles who were in high school at the time. Like I think there was just like our parents were just on the grind, right? Like trying to figure it out, trying to figure out how to navigate this new country, learn the language, learn the culture, assimilate. And there was definitely not like an apparent, let me teach my kids about Cambodia or Cambodian culture. We were just in it. We were partially raised by our grandparents and our aunts and uncles. And so we grew up knowing all the traditions and the cultures and experiencing it, but it wasn't like in contrast to American culture. Whereas my kids now, it is so, I make it a point to teach them. I make them a point to teach them the differences and explain, and take them back to Cambodia every couple years at the young age of khmer months. So I think there's just that difference. But yeah, I don't think we really grew up with like intentional Khmer culture. It was just we were surrounded by it because we were always with our family. Like I didn't grow up really going to birthday parties or having birthday parties. Our parties for like celebration just included hella aunts and uncles. That's it. And
Mm-hmm.
cousins, later on. But that was it. It was like I couldn't go to sleepovers, none of that stuff. So in that sense, that was my culture. Like you were just with your family and that's it.
Yeah.
yeah. We definitely learned a lot of the customs, the culture, just being Cambodian, just from our grandparents. I always tell like people that that's how we really learned, even speaking, because they would only speak to us in Khmer. So with our aunts and uncles, and so we learned a lot from them. But yeah, I think we just had like an average Cambodian American upbringing that, you know, had this duality of growing up wanting to be American, but also being very ingrained with our culture. So, as opposed to, just there's some Cambodians who are just very Cambodian centric when they move here and they never grow out of it, and so some people have different experiences. I think we had, I don't say opportunity, but we just
Well, and it also had a lot to do with the family that sponsored us. Not even sponsored, but they really took my parents under their wing, and they were white from Texas,
Mhm.
and we went to a Christian church,
Mhm.
and we grew up in that church, and there was very little Asian. So
Yeah.
that, along with elementary school, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you guys were was it the 90s that you guys were in middle school or high school? What was the
Yeah.
yeah?
the 90s we were in middle school. I know we're showing our age, but yeah, 90s middle school. I think you were still in elementary school.
Yes.
So
Yeah. I
yeah.
was 10.
And
Yeah.
and the reason why I bring that up is because, I remember the narrative of Cambodian people in the 90s, and there was a certain time, I feel like, when maybe some people may not be as proud to say that you're Cambodian because of whether it be the gang culture that was happening in the 90s and whatnot, and I'm just curious on if that what affected you in any way, or was that just something that you guys kind of ignored, and did that hurt maybe claiming the identity of Cambodianness being
Yeah, growing up,
time?
yeah, no, that's a great question. Think, you know, growing up, obviously nobody knew where Cambodia was from, right?
Mhm.
And we were still at a young age where we couldn't even explain a lot of different, elements of our culture. So people were always having a hard time figuring out who we were. Yes, there was a stigma of Cambodians, especially in Stockton at that time, because a lot of Cambodians immigrated here and they all needed help. Like
Yeah.
you
I'm
know,
just laughing because I remember, and it's like, no, no, no. I'm just laughing because I do clearly remember like this stigma of like, oh, Cambodians eat dogs, like like that was a whole thing. And obviously being even elementary, like that's weird. Animals are pets. Why would I don't want to be associated with that.
Mhm.
Yes, 100%. Like there were like we didn't understand cultural pride, or just like like truly understand at that time the struggles that our parents went through to be here, or even the war at that time, like we were just too young, and it was too fresh for our parents to even process like just how much they had to go in retrospect. they it was so fresh for them then. They didn't even, they were just still in survival mode, and I think you know that just wasn't passed down to us.
yeah, there was. I mean, but there to answer your question, there was a stigma. I think we just, you know, kids just trying to make our way through life as teenagers, being assimilating to American culture. We heard about that stuff, but yeah, I mean, it was sad to hear. Like at times you would be like, "Wow, this is how people perceive us." But we always thought, like, "Hey, you know what? All you can do is just be you and show that, hey, that if you don't live those stereotypes, then people may change their perceptions."
Right.
But yes, there was a. I do now that you bring that up, I do recall
And I think there's a big level of just ignoring it, and
not letting
not
that
really,
define
yeah,
you.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's quite a common answer that I would hear from, people who were kind of in the developmental stages of their lives in the 90s and the early 2000s. You kind of mentioned that mom at that time, it was still so fresh for her. And, as all of our parents, quite honestly. wondering how much you talk about the war, because that's always something overlooming all of our heads, the second generation kids who grew up here, you know? I'm wondering how much of the war she shared with you guys, and because to me, I think that's a really important question to ask because it really does kind of fuel the story of why creating the sauce that we're going to talk about is super important. There's like a whole story behind and the whole history of the Cambodian American experience. So, how much did you guys know or not know growing up?
Our parents weren't really now, as opposed to telling us and versus like real growing up, we realized there was a lot of trauma,
Mhm.
especially our father. I think he's experienced a lot of trauma throughout those periods, that period of his life. But they, as Christina was alluding to earlier, we were raised in a church, and I think they learn how to put like their faith first and just try to move forward without really letting the trauma seep into their everyday life, though it probably had did in some ways. But our mother wasn't afraid of just talking about it. She's talked about it a lot.
Mm.
She would always talk about it when she would, get mad at us, sharing the struggles, just so she'd make us understand how hard she had it, which at the time we did not. It was still very hard to. We understood, but we also knew she was using it as a leverage to make us feel guilty. But yeah, our parents just like they just powered through it. They really became religious and let that kind of let Christianity kind of heal their wounds.
Mm.
And so we learned early on. We learned about, I mean, our we do bun every year, you know, to honor a lot of their siblings who passed during that time. So we would always ask questions. I have a beautiful picture of my beautiful aunt, um, that looks just like my mom, and I'm like, who is that? And so she would tell us the story of who she was. So we learned early on, and it was like the way they looked at it, or they presented to us, was it obviously was a very bad thing, but they didn't want us to like see it as shame. They really wanted us to see it as an obstacle that they made, that they had to go through to life just to get us to where we are now, or where we were then.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just pause, if you don't mind.
Sorry, I'm getting the
Yeah, and I think that is a very common feeling that, a lot of, well, as you said, as I said before, a lot of Cambodian Americans who grew up in America, some more open than others, and a lot of parents, they really had to find their own way to figure out how to process the trauma in their own ways, right? There wasn't a whole lot of resources and support post-war in America for the Khmer parents that we have. So, what was you guys grew up then. You guys grew up in Stockton. And Christina, as I know, you went to culinary school and you've worked in really, really fancy restaurants like the French Laundry, etc. And my understanding, Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong, but you handle more of the marketing aspects of marketing and operations. You guys, you guys graduate high school, get into college. Talk to me a little bit about what you guys did post then, and then how that really came into this baby that you guys have today.
sure. You want to talk about your
Yeah, I mean, and obviously, like we're 2 years apart, so we've always been very close. Like in high school, we had the same. I was friends with all of his friends,
Mhm.
and we always just rolled hard together. Um,
I had no choice.
yeah, and then he left for college, and then I finally left for college. He was in the Bay in San Jose, and then I was in Southern California, and so now we're in like two big cities and no parents, no rules. Like it was a blast. And I think, our relationship like continued to evolve, and just our friends, everything just like really mesh well together. Um, and our families are very, our even our younger siblings, we're all very close. But I got a degree in marketing, started working in advertising, and it was all great, right? Like, okay, I got a degree, like that's what you do, that's what your parents want you to do. Great, I'm doing it. Thank you. you guys have checked the box. You're not a doctor, you're not a lawyer, but whatever, decent, good enough, right?
Right.
And then I decided like, oh, I really enjoy cooking. And like this was like the Food Network days, like Rachel Ray, all that stuff. And I was like really interested and started cooking more at home and asking mom about recipes and questions and how I can like, how do I make your curry dish? I want to try to make it with duck and, just like infusing things that I was learning. And then I decided like I want to go to culinary school. I think I started taking, just junior college classes and just to see if I would like it. I was like, dang, I'm actually pretty good at it. Like I don't think I've never felt that way in school. Just I was always kind of like an A-B+ student, but in this culinary, I was like excited and it all came naturally. And so when I told my parents I wanted to switch careers into culinary, it was like, what? Like,
A lot of tears. A lot of tears.
I can imagine. I can imagine.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
not
It
an
was
easy
like,
one.
yeah. And on top of it, I was like, and can you help me pay for it? So it was, but I don't know. I think at that time, because we both had already worked, and then our sister is 10 years younger. She was like kind of going pre-med. They were like, well, whatever, just do what you want to do. We have hope in our third child, and she can be the one.
She is the one.
She is the one. Yes. And it was great, but ultimately it really brought my mom and I closer together because all of a sudden I'm teaching her things, I'm showing her ways. At first, it was a little conflicting. I'm like, "No, mom, you should cut the onion this way, like the culinary school way." And she's like, "Get out of here, This is like." So we would like race and but now I think just the evolution of our family, it's like, I've taken her spot in a sense. Like I prepare and plan the family meals and things like that, like when we all get together and so whereas the culinary journey for me was at first like kind of like, what are you doing? Now it's like, it's fully embraced. I think everyone in the family sees the value in the choices that I have made.
For sure. Yeah. No, it's been great. We all benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Anthony. Yeah.
yeah. So for me, I mean, I went to college. Unlike most people, I went to college thinking I knew what I wanted to do. I went to college for MIS, which was terrible. I remember having like an epiphany maybe my senior year, and I was like, wow, I really do not want to do this. There's nothing technical about me, you know? I don't want to be an IT consultant. I don't want to help build databases. All my classmates were talking about, a lot of them already had jobs, and so I decided to actually stay in school a little longer because MIS is still a business degree. And I wanted to do something I was very passionate about at the time, which was psychology, because I was working for the city of San Jose with running a lot of the like after school youth programs for the whole county. So just working with kids intrigued me. And I remember telling my mom that I was gonna stay in school, and two, double major in psychology. And she just looked at me and she was like, excuse my language, but she was just like, what the fuck is psychology? But it did tell me a story. It did tell me something about like how they grew up. She's like, I got through the Khmer Rouge without psychology, without learning how to cope with my, traumas and all that stuff. So I understand where she was coming from, but she did not like it. But it was my choice, and I'm glad I did do it because it allowed me to grow and allowed me to do something I was really passionate about. But I was always like a creative person. I always thought about doing things that had nothing to do with work or my career. Like I wanted to be a DJ, so I was DJing for a while, and I moved to San Francisco to pursue that, and just everything outside of like figuring out my adult life. But eventually I settled into a job I got into the construction industry. So I did a lot of construction and build and design, which still had somewhat of a level of creativity, but it was just a job. But funny enough, the way Mama Teav even came about, when I look back at like the journey it took to even just get there, it all actually started with Papa Teav, our father.
Mm.
This guy, he's just a hard worker. He was an entrepreneur. He worked for the county, but then was smart enough to really invest in like the real estate market, which opened up doors for him to try opening up different businesses. Some worked, some didn't, but he always just tried. He was just always willing to try everything. And I think it lent to a lot of inspiration for me. But one thing that when I look back to the origin of just even Mama Teeves is he got into politics really early, probably when I was still in high school, when I was still living in Stockton. He joined, I don't know if you're familiar with Sam Ramsey, but joined his party.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, it was
and
Sam Ramsey party, right?
yeah,
Of
the Sam
course.
Ramsey party,
SRP.
SRP. And he was just like, they had like those Cambodian political parties needed a lot of help from other Cambodians living abroad. So my dad was part of a group that provided a lot of fundraising, a lot of help to help these parties operate in Cambodia. And at first we were like, okay, this is cool. He's doing what he loves, and he's very passionate about it. Our dad is a very quiet guy. He doesn't like to talk. He's very awkward. A man of a few words. Unlike your father, I've seen your videos, and it's like night and day. You know what I mean?
My dad talks too
Uh,
much. Yeah, I know.
no, but it's great. I love it. We love it. But as he started to grow into that political side of that endeavor, he actually had thoughts of maybe moving to Cambodia and running. They really wanted him to run to be a senator in
Mm.
Cambodia, and we were like, "Whoa, wait, what?" I thought you were just helping out here, but we had many family talks, and he decided to go, and he ran, and he became voted in as a senator. So he was a senator for the opposition party. And as you know, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Cambodian politics, but it's been an ongoing battle for a very long time. But back in like the 2012, this is when Cambodia, he was part of the San Ramsey party, joined another party, and they became the CNRP party. And at that time, they were making a lot of headways. They had the elections. There was a lot of
It was a fight for like a free and fair election.
yeah.
Mm.
And
I'm not
this
very
was the
familiar with politics. In
okay. This was the one time in modern history, or actually just in history, where the opposition party had enough support to almost get the majority. And I'll just keep it as that. I don't want to get into like what may have happened to that during elections where, the ruling party still won the majority by just a little bit. But it was the first time where they almost shared the government.
Mm.
And there was a lot of protests in the streets, a lot of marches, a lot of peaceful marches, in Cambodia at that time. And I'm here as a 30-year-old or 30 something year old, just so inspired by my dad, like, wow, what he's putting his life on the line to like really make change out there. So I started to I was very inspired by my dad, so I started to like secretly blog. At the time, blogging was like really big.
Mm.
But what blogging allowed me to do was, and I never shared it with anybody, but it allowed me to like discover all the great things about not only things that were going on in Cambodia, but things that were going on over here too. And then from there, I was like, you know what? I need to do something. I've become like very obsessed with what was going on in Cambodia. So I decided to start a fair trade project with my friends. So what we did was we went to Cambodia. We met with different makers, artisans, farmers, and we would work with them to design their goods and then bring it out here and give them like a market out here. And that was a great experience. That was like 4 years of just a lot of back and forth. It allowed me to travel to Cambodia a lot. And it was probably the first time in my life where I felt very connected to being Cambodian.
Mm.
I was seeking out Cambodian friends because, like I said, I didn't grow up with a lot of like close Cambodian friends, but this time of my life, it allowed me to just be in that sphere. All of these little projects helped me discover myself that, hey, I really want to be an entrepreneur, but I really want to do something that has connection and meaning because of our father. I've always been inspired by just their passion of giving back to Cambodia.
Mhm.
Everything my parents do revolves back to Cambodia. You
Yeah.
know, it's like they were just given a chance here, and now they feel very lucky and blessed that the rest of their life it's all about giving back, helping people. We grew up. It just we always grew up with people living with us, other Cambodians living with us. I think we only had a few years of our childhood where we didn't live with any, where we didn't have families,
Sponsors,
cousins. I
friends.
mean, we always lived in a full house because our parents just had felt like they had a civic duty to help as many people as they can,
Yeah.
to get settled here and give them a pathway to succeed. So, anyways, that journey into different projects, my love for branding, my love for creativity really like came to fruition during the pandemic when we both had time. She was obviously in the restaurant industry, and I approached her about recreating mom's hot garlic chili crisp, and actually just of making it. And Christina, you know, was very adamant that okay, if we were going to do something like this, she would have to recreate mom's recipe the way she'd like to see it. That would fit our kind of like our food philosophy. And then I would just take care of the branding side, the marketing, because that's what I really like to do. I like to create.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that's how it was born. That was
so
the idea.
yeah.
Christina, talk to me then just when it came to creating the current formula that you guys have now, what were some of the kind of non-negotiables? Like, how did you stumble upon the current formula that you have? And considering also too, right? Like there's so many chili oils and oils. It's a very competitive market. And so what was just the mental process kind of going through that with mom, and how did you guys kind of solidify what you have?
I mean, honestly, mom wasn't super involved at all. She had really not that much knowledge of what we were doing.
Mm.
But for me, like at the time, I had discovered, like maybe a year or two prior, I had discovered the like lifestyle of eating called Whole 30, where you
Mhm.
do like elimination of, allergens and things like that. And when I discovered that style of eating, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. I was like working long hours at the restaurant. I was butchering, which was super physical. I would do CrossFit at 6 a.m., ride my bike, commute to work, long days, come back, right? It just was like had to have this particular lifestyle in order to sustain the work that I was doing. But I felt great, and I was like, whenever I would do Whole 30, I'm like, gosh, I like just miss Asian food so much when I'm
Mhm.
on the site because there just wasn't Asian ingredients. And so one of the ideas that I had was like, well, what if we could make this Whole 30, like compliant, and then we could eat it all the time. And I was like, all right, well, let's try. And at my time when I was working at Staperd in the Progress, I was managing the commissary, which did all of the butchery, production, fermentation, charcuterie, all the prep for 2.5 restaurants. And so and we were like a no waste restaurant.
Mm.
So if we had an excess of scallions, we're going to figure out what to do with it, and a lot of dehydration. So that was, when we were like, well, I want a chili crisp that is obviously savory. Like I want all the notes, texture, like savory, spicy, sweetness, and how do we infuse like sweetness without putting in sugar? And it's like, all right, let's play with like some alliums or just different things, and it was a lot of fun, especially during the pandemic, and it was like it just yeah, it just became something that was like, okay, let's have a tasting. I have another thing. Let's try with kelp, or let's try with these mushrooms, or and
Mhm.
it just became super fun. And then once we got the formula down, I was like, all right, yeah, this is doable. It's easy. It's not too many 7 ingredients. It's pretty simple. At the time, we had no idea about manufacturing or scaling or any of that. So that's kind of the jam that we find ourselves in right now. But the
Yeah.
product is awesome and amazing because it's made from scratch.
Yeah.
So
And why a chili crisp, or a garlic crisp versus maybe something else that mom did? Or was that kind of was that
That
your favorite thing? Or was that like
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, our mother, she made a lot of different, chili sauces growing up. She was always just always creating stuff. She has a crazy garden in the back,
Mhm.
always making new stuff, always getting inspired on her trips. But this is the one product where we had family always asking for it. She would always send it to me off to college when I was in
Mm.
college, and even when I was living in like San Francisco as a young 20-year-old, I was like every weekend, it's like, oh, can you pack me up that the garlic chili? Well, she would just call it garlic chili oil.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, and so it was her staple product. That's what for Christmas. She would send our niece or our cousins, her niece, these jars, and so we didn't we had no idea. At the time, obviously, you had the legacy brands like S&B and Lao Gama, and then, at the time, Fly by Jing, Momofuku was barely starting out. So we didn't really know that there were that many chili crisp brands out there.
Mhm.
It wasn't until we released it where when we started doing research on the market, we're like, "Oh, shit." We're like, 1 of 100, It was crazy, but I think, we just when we were thinking about this, everything was very intentional, right? We really want to make a good, clean product
Mhm.
because that's how we could kind of differentiate ourselves from other brands. Some brands you look, it's like, yeah, not so great ingredients, whatever. Some ingredients you can't even understand what they are, and so we wanted to kind of get away from that. We wanted to have a product that was still is authentic, but creative enough where we're bringing in stuff that is familiar to us, which is a lot of California produce, California
yeah,
ingredients.
and that's just pulling from the restaurants that I worked in,
Yeah.
and how, especially being in California, like we're in the, dare I say, like the produce capital of the world. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
everything is just so abundant and fresh and available here year round. It's like, how can we be a California brand and not rep the produce that we have here? So,
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And even us calling it hot garlic, it's a chili crisp. Some people will go, "Oh, you guys are kind of like a chili oil." I'm like, "We are a chili oil. It's just we call ourselves hot garlic, one, to kind of stand out, two, like,
because the product is, like, again, super intentional. I want to make a chili crisp that is versatile. So, like, we don't want to put numbing peppers in it. We don't want to put ginger or sesame or thing like. I really wanted a product that you could use on anything. And so we really were intentional about the ingredients when we finally did the process of, okay, pull that out, let's taste it. Like, let's go with as little things as possible while maintaining that flavor. And
Mhm.
so once we looked at the ingredients, I'm like, nothing in here is inherently Asian. There's no ginger, there's no soy, there's no sesame. And so I was like, why don't we try to differentiate ourselves and call us something else than chili crisp in the name? Like, because then that would open it up more. Like, you can truly put it could be in like a different section of the grocery store. Um we're not, but
yeah,
we're
we're in Asia,
still
Hey,
in the Asian
hey,
aisle.
right next to the top ramen Kiko.
any
Yeah.
differentiation helps. Hey, it's a
Yeah.
tough
Yeah, yeah.
market out there, right?
But
Like,
it was like, okay, why don't we call it hot garlic? Because it's so garlic forward and it's spicy, and so
yeah.
that's how we came up with the name.
Yeah. No, it makes sense to me. I mean, I can imagine 2020 starting this project, COVID project. This podcast actually is a COVID project too. So I totally understand that feeling of like starting from a place of creativity, of like having time as an abundance, and then all of a sudden something blowing up and it becoming this big thing that you never expected. You guys alluded a little bit to it, but it's been it's 2025 now. It's been 5 years of the hot garlic being out. You guys have had, great success getting into almost all of the, fancy premium supermarkets in the Bay Area. If you were to look back, tell me about maybe the biggest challenge when it came to creating Mama Teav's.
The biggest challenge was just like learning about what we didn't know, which was pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Like you look back, like the winter of 2021, we put it out for friends and family. We just made 100 jars. But a lot of these folks, they knew about the chili oil already. So they kind of knew about it, or the chili crisp, and but they didn't know that we were packaging it up, coming up with like calling it Mom Teav, putting a label on it, and then having Christina, unveil this new recipe. So it did really well, and then I just literally create like anybody else, just create an Instagram, and just see where it goes. And then
Yeah.
you know,
Shopify.
we didn't know, we had no idea what we were doing. We didn't even have a Shopify at the time. We had Instagram before we even had a website, and we somehow just word of mouth. It just like people started inquiring about wholesale, and they're like, "Do you guys do wholesale?" And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, no, we've never done it, but we'll figure it out. And everything's just been like just trying to figure everything out. So for the first couple of years, as we were just scaling up, we obviously did some research. You have to go into it with some research in mind or some knowledge in mind, but a lot of it was just learning on the fly and
Asking people.
having
Yeah.
good resources and really just having that grit of just self-determination of completing a task or jumping over a hurdle so you can just continue to move up. But yeah, I mean, every step of the way there's been challenges. Like I think the biggest thing, what Christina just alluded to, was how do we scale up for manufacturing? We created a recipe based off of a culinary chef,
A
which is
commissary kitchen chef who it's one step up than a home cook, as far as like how to create things in batches in large enough batch form. But like, you know, again, we're maxed at 1,800 jars a week,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome. 4 or 5 years ago, I never in my wildest dreams would think we were making 1,800 jars a week
Mm-hmm.
when we were making 100 jars a week. So, but now it's like, all right, well, how do we get to 15,000 jars a week? And that's still on the scale of like manufacturing. That's what some brands do in an hour, 15,000 jars in an hour. Or like if you read about how much sriracha produces in a day, or, it's like the sky is the limit. And so how do we position ourselves for that type of slow and steady growth to get there? I think the one thing I would say is we've always been on our own timeline, and we don't answer to anybody except for ourselves. And the business has, up until now, has like, it has to work for us. It has to work for our lifestyle. He has a full-time job. I have 2 kids and a husband who has his own practice. So it has to work within our lives. And, that work-life balance is still super important. Like we both like to exercise and make time for ourselves and our mental health and all of that. So not to say like we don't go at it every day. Like we are constantly pushing ourselves, but I would say in a healthy way. Like it still feels doable. It feels like we're working hard and we're pushing ourselves past the discomfort of certain tasks or obstacles, but it also feels good.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
So you guys are still actually working full-time jobs on top of this?
I am, well, soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I've been going at it for the last, ever since we started. You kind we didn't we don't have the luxury. I mean, we wanted to bootstrap everything, right? The first 2, 3 years was just trying to figure it out, just to see if we even, because it started as a passion project. You never go into it thinking this is it, like let's quit everything. And so you just got to be responsible. It's kind of like what my dad, did. Like the lessons I learned from my dad is he worked for the county until he retired. And I remember seeing his paycheck one time when I was in college, and it always made me cry because I was just like, oh my God, you get paid nothing, to work
Mhm.
for the county, helping all these people.
Mhm.
But he did it because it got him benefits for the whole family, good retirement package. But he always did things on the side, like his real hustle. And so, I was like, if he could do that, I could work full time and still grow this business, just to grow it responsibly. And that's being conservative with money, and not wanting to get outside help financially, so
Mhm.
we can do it on our time, grow it the way we want to. And so it's kind of worked out for us in that manner.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Christina, you're still working as well? Or no? Okay.
No, I've been pretty much full time Mama Teaves for a while.
Yeah.
I used to help my husband with his practice
Mm.
a little bit more hands on. Um, it kind of ebbs and flows when it needs me. I do all the back end stuff and just help him manage and grow the practice. He's he's got a good handle on it, and we've been intentional as a family to like, all right, I'm gonna focus more of my attention on this, but I still have two really young kids, and
Yeah.
that's a job.
That is a
It
job
really is.
that
Like,
will take up your time for sure.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, between that and this, it's my days are full. That's for sure.
Right. Right. What has been the most proud moment then in this journey so far with Mama Tia's?
Good question. I think for me, it's been a culmination of things, right? Like one, I know that sounds funny, but seeing my mom actually become like happy, and proud. It took a little while because, I would always come up with crazy ideas and things, little projects, and she would always help. That was the one thing about mom. Or our mom, she would always help, support anyway. But with this project, she was like, "Oh, are people really gonna like what you're selling me as a brand? Like, how can you like
She's like,
do
"Why is
this?"
my face on here?"
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think we were able to do a good job of like, you know, branding her in a way that made her proud. And once her friends, it wasn't until her friend and her church friends, caught wind of it and started using the product was when she was really proud. So that was a really proud moment when she was like, "Okay, I'm in. Like, let me know what you need." But I think just overall, just being able to see how this business has galvanized and brought together our family even more, because all of our siblings, our father, he helps in whichever way he can, because we work with farmers in Cambodia, and without my dad's help of taking time out of his busy schedule, help running campaigns and doing speeches all over the countryside in Cambodia. He's visiting farmers for us and making deals for us, while we're out here. And it's like, man, to think that like he would do something like that for us is pretty amazing. And so I think we're just proud like that as a family we have something that brings us together, and there is growth in it. So it's nice just being able to, you know, work together. It's some
yeah,
great, yeah.
yeah. Definitely. Like every milestone, it's all proud moments that we probably don't celebrate often enough because we're just in the grind. But I mean, even the fact that as siblings we can work together and
Mhm.
divide and conquer and have fun and travel together, and it's like it the whole process, even like with my two kids, I'm like, well, I can go do the deliveries if you watch the kids, like
Mhm.
while
Mhm.
I go and do it. And it's like, oh, it's great. I get to be in the car by myself for an hour, and uncle is watching the kids across the street, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
So just, yeah, just the whole journey of it, and just being with family and building this together from scratch. It's like we don't celebrate it enough, but in my mind, I reflect on it nightly, and it's great. It's so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think the coolest thing about this as well, and really love how you brought Papa Tiev's and his passion and his just love for Cambodia and his passion for Cambodia as the backbone to you guys creating something that is from Cambodian, you know? I mean, chili oils is a very, very concentrated space, right? But
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that's specifically Cambodian in that space. Like this might be the first one. And so that's just super cool. And I think that a really important piece to this whole thing is going back and tying back the culture behind this, the history behind this, and using this as an opportunity to not only share something delicious, but share something that represents an underrepresented culture, right? And so I'm curious, would you say then that it was just Pop Tiev's influence that you guys really wanted to create something within the free time that you guys had during COVID? Like, tell me about the aspect of like uplifting the culture, or if that was really something that you guys had in mind, or did it just happen to be that way unintentionally?
Okay. I'm gonna raise my hand real quick. I'm just gonna take this, but I remember the question and I will answer it right
Yeah.
now. Sorry.
I'm actually gonna keep it rolling and then I'm just gonna edit it out later. That might be
Okay.
easier.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, it's okay. Monday will be there soon, and they can look that far off.
All right. Sorry about that.
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I mean, our father was definitely an inspiration to. I think it comes from both parents. Just seeing how they've moved with their life. Hey, nice dog. Just seeing how they've lived their life. It definitely was a big inspiration.
I'd say all of it. Like, like when we thought about this product, it was like, well, definitely we're honoring our parents and there's a story to tell and we can weave that into the brand and like share the story.
Yeah,
And then like when we thought about putting, like yes, it's a chili crisp that is the product. The chili crisp itself derives from China, but because we're putting garlic in it, like so much garlic, which is so heavy in Southeast Asian cuisines, it was like we're introducing this kind of flavor combo, and through the branding and the marketing and the storytelling, like we're able to introduce Cambodian or Khmer culture subtly, but also intentionally.
well, I will say this, and I tell people this all the time. Like when we think of the Khmer diaspora, here in America, we're fairly new, right? The first wave came in the mid-70s, right? Because of the war, the people who were able to get out early. But when you think about the footprint of Cambodians in America, it's fairly new. And growing up, going back to what you had mentioned, of the stereotypes, how, and I've seen this in a lot of media, like Cambodian media, of how we're always disparaged, one of the most uneducated, groups of people, all of those stereotypes. It's like, dude, that's what we're really known for, and it's sad. And I think there's been obviously a new generation of Cambodian folks, here and in Cambodia, who are really changing the narrative of our people, including our cousin Laura and Andy. But we like this is our imprint, our legacy of our family's journey in America, and it has to start. We're just one little building block of many building blocks of other my folks doing stuff, and creating and being educators, being lawmakers that are really elevating our status, or just us as a people here in America. And in about 100 years or 200 years, just like our Filipino or Chinese or Japanese counterparts, where they could look back and they could go, hey, our great grandfather started this and blah blah blah, right? Like that's that's what we want to do. We want to be able to create something that has a lasting impact that will then hopefully inspire maybe another maker or another chef or another whatever, to continue to just add and build on top of what we're building on, because we're building on top of what others have already started for us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I love that. And I think when you look at the scope of things, it's actually quite rare to find Cambodian Khmer entrepreneurs currently. I think more and more of us are coming out, and that space is
That's
growing.
not in the donut industry, right?
That is
Yeah,
very
I was gonna say,
true.
like, there's a
That is
lot of
also very true. That is true. I stand corrected.
not let you disparage my uncles like that.
That is very true. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, unfortunately, there is this narrative, and I don't know if you guys have understood or heard it or relate to it, this idea of like crabs in a bucket, that the Cambodian people in general have a hard time essentially supporting one another. And I don't know if that's something that stems, I believe it's something that stems from the Khmer Rouge and from a time
Yes.
of war when it was impossible to trust anybody and impossible to put your faith in somebody for the sake of survival. So that's completely understandable. But I'm curious on if you guys experience that, or if that's something that you guys feel in this generation you guys are trying to change in some way, or has that been an impact to you in some sense because you guys have gained the success that you guys have, and if that's something that you experience or not.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great I mean, that's an excellent question, and it's a real thing, right?
Mhm.
We've experienced it. I know I have, just growing up, and you just see even just like, yeah, I remember in high school, there was a lot of Cambodians. By the time I got to high school, there was a lot of Cambodians,
Mm.
but they saw me as like not one of them, maybe just because they had just arrived to America not too long, and they just saw a different type of Cambodian. And so, like I got a lot of stares and, they just cold stares and
Mhm.
in classrooms and such. But it's you can't help but feel a certain way about it. But when you kind of step back and you look at like what everybody had to go through, and you're trying to be objective about everything and understanding and empathetic, you understand why that crab and barrel mentality is, because it's like when you haven't been given the resources, provide the resources or the care to get not only through trauma, but just to try to make it here, it's a natural cause of people feeling that way.
Mhm.
Doesn't make it excusable or anything, but if you can just understand and have empathy for that, then it allows you to help navigate through those issues, or through those, times where you come across it. So I've always tried to just share empathy and just, I don't want to say ignore it, but try to treat people like, hey, like you're no different. We're all the same. We just gotta love each other. We're only one or two generations separated from war, and like,
Mhm.
why are we, fighting each other? I just have so much love for Cambodian people. Everywhere whenever I come across anybody Khmer, it's always love, because I know that we've come so far as people. But yeah.
Yeah, I think, and then just in our journey through this, it's all about the collaboration. It's all about lifting each other up. If you happen to be Cambodian and you cross paths with us and there is some possible way for us to work together, we're working together.
Mhm.
So it's like, from like Olivia to Nak to
Our designers, and he's
Andy.
my yeah, we've
Mhm.
just found ways to just to, and we collaborate, with Night at Lunette. We have a product there. It's like we're using this platform or this business to be able to connect with other my folks, so we can just lift those voices up and just show like, hey, this is there doesn't need to be that crab in the barrel
No.
kid mentality. Like we all love each other. If we
If
just
anything, we're like the crab, and then like, all right, just climb on my back, and then you can just pop yourself over, and then let me grab onto your arm. Like that's more the mentality. I think it's 100% like totally for the culture. Like whatever we can do. I would even say like Henry, our social media manager. Like he's part Khmer, but I don't think he was like fully in touch with his Khmer side. Like, and now like I see the changes in the way that he is exploring like ingredients and content and ideas, and I see a shift, and I'm like, "Oh, that's so awesome to see him like fully embracing, just aspects of his own Khmer identity." But yeah, I mean,
yeah
if anybody's watching and you're Khmer and you want to collaborate, hit us up.
yeah yeah we're actually collaborating with Milton in Minneapolis. He's another amazing Khmer creative.
Yeah.
But yeah, our parents, they were lucky enough to get the resources, right? And we learned early on, like, hey, we were lucky. We were lucky because we have a lot of even family members who maybe didn't have the resources
Mhm.
to help them kind of get that push to, I don't know how you say it, like not make it, but just have a better start here
To
in
the
Cambodia
next
because it's
level.
tough.
Yeah.
Like you think coming to America is like it's gonna be all, good. It's not. It's a tough journey. We've even seen other Cambodians within the last 10, 15 years thinking that, oh, we're gonna come out to Cambodia and make a life for ourselves. They end up going back. They're like, I don't want this life. So it's tough. And so our parents always like it always goes back to our parents. They've always made themselves available to the community and try to help out, other folks who maybe didn't have the resources that they had or that we had. And it's just always about trying to figure out how do we continue to elevate each other one by one.
Yeah. No, I absolutely love that, and I am right there with you guys. People who are on my team, Henry, my videographer, he's also my Vietnamese, and so he's been getting in touch with his identity as well. So it's super cool, and I love that this generation now has decided to just reject that part of, and we're not going to take that on to the next generation. We're going to embrace our culture and do this differently collectively. And it's such a cool time to be a part of this generation, to watch things kind of flourish and watch you guys do what you do. What is next for Mama
That's funny
Teav?
that you asked. That's funny that you asked. So, this whole journey of, we didn't, well, obviously we started off with the chili, hot garlic chili crisp.
Mm.
And you start off with that product, you kind of know what you know. And through this journey, we realized, hey, we want to do more. We discovered that there is a gap in the market for Asian brands to create good quality products out there, condiment products, pantry products, food in general, because there's a lot of like legacy brands that have a strong hold in the market. Talking about Lee Kum Kee, Kikoman, Sriracha, and obviously there's a lot of Asian brands. Most of them are from imported from overseas, and we realized there's a niche for us. This generation and people are starting to understand what they consume, and they're looking for better alternatives. I'm not to say that what we've had or consumed are bad. It's just they're all one and the same. So we've recently have been working on a rebrand, and we really want to target um, the Southeast Asian market diaspora. We really want to bring out the flavors and the cultures, not only just Cambodia, but neighboring countries, because we all share a lot of the same ingredients, like
Mhm.
you know, you know, lemongrass,
Mhm.
galangal, lime leaves, and so we want to continue to build an array of different products that lend itself to our food philosophy of using really good whole ingredients, but making it as authentic as possible, and just giving, just like exposing Southeast Asian Cambodian culture.
And yeah, like as far as like the brand and storytelling, like beyond just mom, like we want to share all of the different, whether you're Vietnamese or Thai or Laos or Cambodian, like there's just we all share so many of the same
Which is
experiences growing up, and to be able to have fun with that and, you know, like not even make fun, but just, yeah, kind of
Yep.
embrace it, right? Like this is what we grew up with. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, I know like Henry just posted that video of like a parent, an Asian parent's love language is cut fruit. But then he had like shallots and garlic on the knife. And it's like, but your fruit tastes like everything else that when your parents just got, and it's like that's the type of, like that resonates with a lot of Asian cultures. And so yeah, just being able to continue telling a story, but like to all Southeast Asian American experiences.
But yeah, we're transitioning into a full food brand. It's Chili Crisp will always be our anchor brand, and we have so much. I mean, you had mentioned like we're in a lot of the, I guess you can say, the natural food stores that would perceived as high end, and they somewhat are, but we haven't gotten into like some of the bigger national chains yet, and that's what we're going to focus on going to next year to expand our reach because we feel like we're just barely breaking through the surface, and we've broken through into some really good stores that we're really proud of. Next year is like going national and then introducing more products that people can use in their everyday cooking.
Yeah. Well, I love what you guys have built, the legacy that you guys have created, and the message you guys are trying to push. I mean, and just like meeting you guys and hearing the passion come out of how both of your backgrounds molded and created this amazing product. I personally, as I said, use it. I have it in my office with Ba, and we kind of sprinkle it on top of our food every once in a while. I'm just so proud to know that this is something Khmer is actually on the shelf. It's like for the longest time you couldn't find anything that was Khmer, right? And
Yeah.
you guys are doing it in such a cool, hip way from the marketing and the as you said, like Anthony, you're definitely with that creative side and making it look super cool and hip. I'm just a big fan. I'm super excited for where you guys are going to take this. And yeah, no, I just can't wait to see where you guys go.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, I mean it's easy. My folks are clueless. We're just some cool people. It's easy to get inspiration from my folks. We're just really cool. That's all I'm just gonna say. For
We're
real.
like this generation's like ready to support each other. We're like, go.
Yeah.
What do you got? People can probably look you guys up, but where can they get a bottle of Mama Teav's and where can they find you guys?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost on our website, mamateaves.com. And we have like a store locator on there. But, if you're in the Bay Area, you could pretty much find us in, yeah, most natural food stores, a lot of boutique stores,
Market,
World Market.
which is nationwide. That's our first national, chain. Um, but yeah, correct. www.mamateeves.com is always best. That's, you know, there's food, the food business is hard,
Mhm.
whether you're a restaurant or a food, CPG business. I mean, there's not a lot of wiggle room or margins in food. So, I think it's also great timing because a lot of consumers are really supporting small brands and shopping direct and you know supporting us that way. So that's always great.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're in like 600 stores. So
Mhm.
if it's more convenient, you can always find us there.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, Anthony and Christina, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure having you guys. I am sure that a bunch of the listeners, my listeners are mostly, the Khmer diaspora folks. And so they're going to get so much out of this episode. And I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your story. I really, really enjoyed learning about everything that you guys are doing and where you guys are going.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
this
Really
awesome
appreciate it.
platform and thanks
Yeah.
for all the work that you're doing to share these Khmer stories. So
Yeah.
awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you.